Today we are looking at the story of Joshua, and we are going to meditate in particular on his presence with Moses at the tent of meeting. Today you will call that the church. It is written in Exodus chapter 33 that now Moses used to take a tent and pitch it outside the camp in the wilderness, some distance away, calling it the tent of meeting. Anyone inquiring of the Lord would go to the tent of meeting outside the camp. And that is something interesting. It was not only priests or Moses as the leader that were allowed to enter that tent of meeting. We know that later on in the temple in Jerusalem, the Holy of Holies, where the presence of the Lord stood, was only allowed once a year by the high priest. But when they were in the wilderness and started getting acquainted to the Lord and getting to know him, that tent of meeting was open to anyone. So anyone inquiring would go. And whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people rose and stood at the entrance to their tent, watching Moses until he entered the tent. As Moses went into the tent, the pillar of cloud that signaled the presence of God would come down and stay at the entrance, while the Lord spoke with Moses, which meant that it was a one-to-one. Whoever entered, only one at a time was allowed for a discussion, very private, with God. Whenever the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance to the tent, they all stood and worshipped, each at the entrance to their tent. The Lord would speak to Moses face to face, as one speaks to a friend. Then Moses would return to the camp, but his young aide, Joshua, son of Nun, did not leave the tent. And that is the point. Joshua was young, but Moses had chosen him as his assistant, as his aide. It was customary, even in Nigeria, traditionally, men were taking their son to accompany them to, wherever they were going, in particular to meetings with other men. It was an all-men affair, and the son would accompany his father. And that is exactly what Joshua was doing with Moses, although he was not physical son to Moses, but he was a spiritual son, the spiritual son of Moses. And that accompanying Moses to the tent was being discipled to learn about God's identity, God's presence, learning prayer, as we call it today, as conversation with God. Joshua was the only one that was allowed to know about that. And later on we read that Joshua was also the one that accompanied Moses. When Moses was called up the mountain to meet with God, Joshua accompanied him to a point and stayed with him until from that camp 1, as you call it, God called Moses up the mountain. So Moses went up more to a second part of the mountain, and then Joshua waited for him. And when Moses came down, he met Joshua halfway where they had stayed, and then went down again. And it's at that time that Joshua was hearing people making noise, singing and whatever, and Joshua was saying, "What is it? Are they singing?" And that was a conversation that was recorded for us. So we see that coming to the tent of meeting with Moses was a discipleship, was a learning how to pray, how to converse with God, learning about God's voice, learning how to recognize it, how to appreciate it. But it was also, at the same time, a getting to know Moses more. they became more and more acquainted. They started thinking alike, behaving alike, speaking alike. They became one gradually. And this is what explains that God chooses Joshua at the end to replace Moses. Joshua became the successor of Moses not because he was super duper warrior or qualified, but because he knew God. He was introduced to God earlier in life. He knew God better than most of the leaders in the wilderness, and he was also trained in leadership by Moses. And that is something that is very, very, very important. And I want to encourage you. He accompanied Moses all through. He learned in the ups and downs of wilderness experience how to be a disciple and how to recognize God.